Hey guys, what's up? Alarin here, and welcome back to my channel. Here I am with a 28 Throne of the Tides that my team and I managed to time this week on a fortified week, actually. This key is no easy peasy, especially on fortified. Everything's deadly. Everything can almost one-shot, so literally anywhere in this place. So I'm very glad that we got to get this key out of the way, get huge score, and manage how to use our CCs effectively as well, because it's Raging Week, and Throne of the Tides with Raging is not a good combo of affixes. But we managed, and I'm very happy that we got the key done with. I'll be giving a short voiceover over the trash packs and the bosses and how I heal them, and I hope you enjoy the video. In this first pool and in the third pool, where you have the Sentinel mobs that cast the Crushing Depth's Healing Absorb, what you see me doing is mostly I prepare beforehand by placing a Cloudburst Totem, and then I will Primordial Wave that person that's getting targeted by the debuff, and then I usually pair that with Ancestral Guidance, and I Nature Swiftness into Healing Wave for a very big Healing Wave slash single target heal on that same person. Other than that, you also see me playing Voodoo Totem, which is the healing trinket from Naz'jar. This trinket is also very good to handle the Crushing Depth Healing Absorb, since it heals for a ton, and it can help you sometimes if you cannot manually heal the second Healing Absorb, because usually you have two Sentinels mostly on the third pool, of this dungeon. Other than that, my team got very lucky in this Throne of the Tides that we did, because most of the Crushing Tides debuffs went on the Warrior, and Warriors can Spell Reflect and ultimately kill the mob, because, well, the mob gets the debuff and it kills itself, which is very good for us because I don't need to heal it through, and the mob basically dies on its own. But I had to heal some here, and also on the pack before the Naga boss, which is the first boss. Also, a very good advice I'm using, I've been starting to use the Potion of Withering Dreams, which is an option of an health potion instead of the Dreamwalker's sleeping potion. And this Withering Dreams potion has a drawback, but its effect has saved me so many times. It's actually amazing, because the effect is pretty much, it heals you up to full. It's literally like a paladin's lay on hands. The drawback, though, is that you suffer nature damage, but it is very little, and I would say negligible, that I honestly haven't even noticed. Maybe because I'm a healer, but I honestly have never noticed the drawbacks. But what you can do here is you can use it to pretty much get rid of the debuff by just health botting on a last resort scenario. And that's mostly how you handle the Crushing Depths debuff. And here we have the first boss of the dungeon. I think I've already went through what I do on this boss on my previous Throne of the Tides video, but mostly what you see me doing here before the Focus Tempest cast is I pre-place a Cloudburst Totem. I make sure that my Riptides are all spread out on the whole group. So my future step, which is Primordial Wave, Healing Wave Cleaves, affect the whole group. But what I will do is I will Primordial Wave someone, and then I will Nature Swiftness, and I will instantly Healing Wave the person that gets hit first with the Lightning cast, because usually that same person will drop to around 20% health, and then that same heal will almost top that same person. If the person for some reason doesn't take a lot of damage, I will hold still that Nature Swiftness into the next person that gets hit by the Focus Tempest, and then I will recall Cloudburst Totem for another AoE healing output if it is needed by then. But yeah, outside of that, in the ad phase, there's not really any that much happening, so not a lot to talk about in there, and that's pretty much how you handle the Focus Tempest healing scenarios. Outside of that, you obviously can pair healing cooldowns with Primordial Wave into Healing Wave Cleaves. And outside of that as well, I also just Healing Surge a lot during the Focus Tempest, and also send some fast chain heals, mostly during High Tide, but yeah, that's pretty much it. For the second boss of the dungeon, Commander Ulthok, this boss is pretty easy to handle, to be honest. This boss is an example of how, I think if you already know me, you know that I really enjoy playing around Primordial Wave Cleaves with Undulation, and this boss is literally a perfect boss for it, because it is a scripted boss, and you can play around every Primordial Wave for the AoE Stomp that you also get a debuff for. And it is, like I said, a very scripted boss, so it is very easy and manageable to heal. What you see me doing here before any AoE stomps is I make sure that I either have Spear Walker's Grace or Nature Swiftness, so I can instantly heal the group back to full once we get hit. And this is just because I don't fall off, or rather fall behind in healing, because, you know, of all the movement. And then it becomes awkward to heal those same people back up, and it actually can become deadly and dangerous. But what you see me doing before any of the AoE stomps is I apply Riptide on the whole group. I start with Cloudburst, and then I might not do in every, but for the most part, what you want to be doing on this boss is make sure that you are at 2 to 3 stacks of Annihilation, press Primordial Wave, and then either Spearwalker's Grace and then Healing Wave, or Ninja Swiftness into Healing Wave. And then you can press Chain Heal during High Tides or Healing Surge, and then recall Cloudburst Totem, and that's pretty much it. And then you just DPS the boss and dodge the oozes. Outside of that, like I said, I use both of those movement abilities split up, those being Spearwalker's Grace or Ninja Swiftness. Like I said, so it makes healing a lot easier on the go, and so I can make sure that my group is topped up right after the AoE stomp. And here we have the third boss of the dungeon. And this boss is actually quite tricky, especially on the current week, which is Afflicted. As a healer, you can't really handle the affix here on this boss, considering you have to save your manual dispel to dispel the flame shock debuff, which is the main mechanic on this boss. However, as a Resto Shaman, you can somewhat still handle the affix. You can drop Poison Cleansing Totem and handle Afflicted every other second set, I believe. That being said, as a healer, you definitely need help from your team to handle the affix on this boss. But it just so happens to be Afflicted, which is not the main topic on this boss. The gameplay around handling the debuffs is some debuffs you will have to communicate with your team and say, you're gonna need to press a defensive here, and you will have to heal through that same debuff, so you have the next debuff ready to be dispelled in that other person. And this is just so you don't start falling behind in healing and don't get overwhelmed with upcoming flame shock debuffs. Because a lot of the times I see, for example, that the paladin gets the debuff, he uses a defensive, he's not in danger, so I will heal that person. In this case, the paladin. And then I see that the evoker, which is just so happens to be the squishiest person in my comp, gets the debuff. And he almost dies. Then I have my dispel ready and I can dispel him instantly. And this is pretty much the gameplay around this boss, is you will have to heal through some of the debuffs, and the other ones you were needed to be ready to dispel that same debuff instantly. And that's pretty much how I handle the boss. Outside of that, if you start falling behind in healing, I obviously just start using my cooldowns more aggressively, like Ascendance or Spirit Link. Also, don't forget to pop your Earth Ellie for an extra defensive if you are talenting into it, at least in high keys. I think you should. And that's pretty much how you handle the third boss. And here we have the Gauntlet of the Throne of the Tides dungeon, and this Gauntlet doesn't have to be necessarily hard, but in pugs I can imagine that with people just mindlessly AoEing the corruption mobs, and as a result the group getting stacks of the debuff just makes the swelling AoE casts double as hard than it needs to be. And yeah, but pretty much what you see me doing here to handle the healing demand from the same elementals is pretty much what I do in almost any boss in this dungeon is I start with pre-placing a Cloudburst Totem. I have my Riptides applied on the group. I Primordial Wave into Healing Wave Cleaves. Outside of that, I Chain Heal during High Tide, and then I Healing Surge people manually, and then recall Cloudburst, and that's pretty much how I handle the AoE. Outside of that, I just do the same thing, but pair that with a cooldown. Unless Primordial Wave is, like I said, on cooldown, then I will most likely Healing Surge people with Riptide, and then by doing that, at some point I will proc High Tide, and then I Chain Heal. On the last boss, I don't think there's a lot much to talk about here. Before people get targeted by the AoE circles, which then drops puddles on the ground, I just make sure that people have Riptide on them, and then I Primordial Wave into Nature Swiftness Healing Wave, so they are topped up instantly. Sometimes people can mindlessly step into the ink even after they get hit, and the damage ticks quite fast, so it can be nasty, or unfortunate rather, if they die without noticing right after the debuff. So I just make sure that they are topped up right after they get hit. And outside of that, there's not much to talk about here on this boss. You also get an AoE sort of dot during the encounter, but it is very manageable to heal. But yeah, like I said, this boss is not really healing intensive, so I don't think there's much to talk about here. You can also see next to my details window the abilities that I'm pressing, but I'm mostly DPSing the boss because, like I said, it is not very healing intensive. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the overall voiceover and the VOD, and I hope to see you on the next video.